Hi, my name is Ivy Scheck-Snyder, and I'm a gaited horse trainer from Northern Illinois. Today we are talking about riding on different surfaces and how those surfaces affect the gait. You can ride on roads, dirt, gravel, sand, arenas that have deeper footing, flatter footing, short grass, tall grass, uphill, downhill, and I want to talk about how those different surfaces affect your horse's gait and ability to hold the gait. Now, some of the things I'm going to tell you are basically like this is how it usually works. Some of the videos, I'm sorry, I have something in my eye. I don't know what. Some of the videos or some of the techniques work like all the time. Okay. So, one of the things that pretty much is always, so if you have a trot, let's just go through some of these. This is not in any particular order. You may have to take notes because there's quite a variety that I'm going to cover. So for horses that are trotty, here's what has never helped them have a good gait. Tall grass, deep footing. Short grass doesn't even usually help the gait. So if you have a horse that's trotty, you will do the absolute best thing that will help your horse is a flat, level surface that is smooth as possible. So like hard dirt or a paved or asphalt or concrete road, something that's as flat as possible. If not, then a hard grass surface where the grass is cut as short as possible. Those are the best surfaces for your gaited horse, your trotty horse, to hold the gait. What is not gonna help the trot is any deeper footing. So like I said, the sand, the tall grass, arenas, generally none of those things help your trotty horse to gait. Now, it doesn't mean that your horse can't learn to gait in those different surfaces, but that won't help your trotty horse learn at the beginning. So again, I encourage everyone with a trotty horse to ride on the hardest, flattest surface they can find, build up that gait, and then begin adding in rougher surfaces. All right, so pacey horses. Pacey horses are sometimes benefited by deeper footing, such as a deeper arena, sand, tall grass. What this does is that deeper footing encourages them to pick up their feet more, pushing them more toward a gait or the trot. Now remember, we want our horses to be able to gait on all different surfaces, or at all different areas, whether it's arenas, trails, deeper footing, rocky footing, grass. So the goal isn't to only ride our horses in areas that are easy, but to ride them initially in the easy areas, praise them, stop and praise, so that they're rewarded for doing it, and then have them learn to ride and to gait in those other areas. Now let me tell you a few things about pacey horses as well. So when I'm training pacey horses and I have tall grass, like in the spring or the summer, I absolutely utilize that tall grass to encourage the trot or the gait, remembering that if they give me any gait, I stop and praise. All right, that's how they learn. And I will utilize that as much as I can. And so when they do gait, I don't push for them to keep going in the tall grass. I stop and praise and gradually start asking in the shorter grass. If they're still pacing, then I take them back to the tall grass and continue alternating my rides, or even just within 1 minute to the next, sometimes in the short grass, sometimes in the tall grass. Now, with pacey horses, another thing that can sometimes help to see where you're at in your gait is to actually ride them on a hard surface like the road. Now, you may go, well, that's totally opposite, because we just talked about riding in a rougher footing, like deep sand and tall grass. How does the road help? Well, I don't 100% know for sure why the road helps, but a lot of times the road will help because it makes them be a little more square and you can hear the footfalls. So at my clinics, we're often riding in the arena the first few days, but no matter if your horse is gaiting or not, early on, like at the end of the clinic, by day 3, if your horse isn't gaiting, I will still always take the horse out to the road because some horses benefit from riding on that harder, flat surface. Okay? Hey, Sonia from British Columbia and Nancy from British Columbia. We don't have a lot of people watching or commenting. Hopefully that's not an issue with my internet or anything going on. So I'm just going to keep recording. Hopefully if there's any issues, people will let me know. So the next thing that I want to talk about is, it's a little bit in conjunction. So when I ride, I encourage a lot of barefoot riding. And if your horses have trouble with riding on rocks, boots are a really good option. There's a lot of different kinds out there. I'm not going to recommend any one kind. I've heard good things about many different boots and how they will benefit your horse for riding on rocks or riding, on slippery surfaces. The other thing too that I want to mention is that if you ride on the asphalt with shoes on, that is incredibly slippery for horses. Now, if your shoes have Tex or Boreum on the bottom, you'll be fine. If your horses are flat shod, nothing on the bottom, then it might be pretty slippery and be better to ride on gravel than on asphalt. But if your horses are barefoot or you're using boots, then asphalt, or concrete or seal coat, whatever you want to call it, chip and seal, there's a lot of different names for that, is a really great surface to practice gait on. One, you can hear it, and two, it can help the horse be more square. And once they've learned on that flatter area, you can continue trying to get gait other places and pushing what they're able to do. So I am kind of surprised that there aren't more viewers for this. Maybe it's just because it's a Monday. But one thing that's really interesting is this is super big for getting gait, because a lot of people will send me videos of them riding their trotty horse in like an arena with deep footing, and you can see that it's deep, and they are setting themselves up kind of for failure by riding in that deep arena or in that tall grass when you need to ride in a flat surface. And imagine how much faster it would go if you could ride where it'd be most helpful initially. Again, we're not saying to stay there. The goal is to train the horse and be able to ride anywhere. Kate says, New Jersey, new Tennessee walk or starts with trot, then goes into lateral movement. High grass? Well, that's a great question, Kate. So if I have a horse that will trot and pace, okay, I love that. Oh man, you bring me that horse, I'll have him gaiting, generally speaking, within a few hours. Give me, 1 week and that horse will be gaiting amazing. Because you have kind of the best of both worlds in some ways, and I'll explain that. And so actually I would ride on the road. Because once I would train the head down first in the pasture, get that really solid at the walk, trot, and pace. Okay? Do all of that. Then ride on the road, and anytime the horse goes lateral, ask for the head down, and most likely he'll switch back to the trot. Then whenever he trots, lift up gently, just a little tiny bit on the reins to see if you can get him to switch. If he stays really, really lateral, then the tall grass can help. But if the tall grass immediately makes him switch to the trot, the flat surface is usually your best bet. So again, this is a really important topic, because why make it harder for your horse than you need to? We're already struggling with our gait. So I will ride, once the horses have their head down and are showing a tiny bit of gait, I do go riding right on the road, and I don't stay in the pasture or the deep footing very long. But if you're still struggling with it, stay in an area that's easier for your horse. So if your horse is pacey, stay in the deeper footing, stay in the tall grass for as long as you need to. But remember, it's not to just do it there, it's to actually do it there and stop and praise whenever you get a little bit of gait. Right? That is how the horse is going to do it again next time and learn what we need him to do. So again, shoes are, what you have on their feet is important for this. And every time you put shoes on or take shoes off or change the angles, everything could change as your horse is growing. So if they're under 7 years old, they may or may not be still growing. And it could change from 1 month or day to the next based on their growth as well. So keep that in mind as you are working with your horses, and have a lot of grace if your horse is younger. Now, most of you that are watching are dealing with horses that are not youngsters, and so that is not an issue for you guys. Let's see. I will talk briefly about uphill and downhill. I know many gaited horse trainers recommend like pacey horses always going uphill. Many of you tell me, oh, my horse gaits well uphill. I kind of call BS on that a little bit. I think it just feels a little bit smoother going uphill. Here's the thing, because I've ridden lots of gaited horses and have had no change going uphill. And I will tell you that I've worked with lots of pacey horses that gaited better with a very slight downhill. Why? Because they had to get their butt under them a little bit more. And so I actually encourage riding mostly on the flat, because when I'm riding the gaited horses, usually it doesn't take long for them to start gaiting really well on the flat. And then it doesn't take very long at all for them to gait downhill. So if I have a horse that I'm training, so we've got the head down done, we've got all the basics done, and we're actually ready to start training the gait. Usually it takes about 6 or 7 days before I start getting that gait going downhill. Most people are like, what? My horse won't even gait downhill, and I will get it in about 5 or 6 days. And again, that's having done the prep work, but once I start working on the gait, I will get gait from a pacey horse often on the downhill. You can try to use hills to your advantage. Be very aware that paying attention to what the gait does sound like, because it could just feel smoother, but it still could be a stepping pace, and that's not exactly the answer we're looking for. Hi, Chrissy from Texas and Kimberly from West Virginia. So again, for those of you just joining in, you may have to go back and watch the beginning where I talk about all the different surfaces and which surfaces help which gaits. Let me know if anybody has any questions. We're a smaller group today. That's okay. I want to mention that for Wednesday's topic, I forgot that I have something, and so it may not actually be a live video. It may just be I'll upload the video at 4. But if you comment, I will be answering questions afterwards. Anyway, so the different surfaces matter. Now, sometimes you may only have a pasture to ride in. Well, most people do have access to a road of some sort that could be safe-ish, whether it's your driveway or you could trailer to a trailhead that has something. And if you do have a pasture and you have a trotty horse, try to mow a section of grass down really short and work there if possible. And again, try to keep it as flat as possible. If you have a rough, area to ride in where there's lots of clumpy grass and stuff, if you have a trotty horse, that will not help at all. That will just encourage them to trot, to pick up their feet a little bit more. So there you go. That's kind of how the surfaces work and why they work. A lot of trotty horses will have trouble gaiting in deep sand and in rocky terrain. They can get better with practice as they build up those gaiting muscles, but that's still a little bit of an issue for them, or it can be a little bit of an issue for them. But again, really build up that gait. Now, interesting thing, just thinking about building up gait, keep in mind that if your horses have a long time off, whether it's over winter, whether it's from an injury or a vacation, keep in mind they may need a lot of tune-up to get back to where they were before, because they would have not necessarily lost the memory, but they might have lost the muscle based on the horse. So just keep that in mind as you're working with these gaited horses. Well, so not so many questions today. If anybody has any questions, this is your last chance to kind of get those out there, and I'll answer them. Otherwise, I'll be doing a live video tomorrow, and then I'll upload another video on Wednesday. And then I will be out of town for a couple of weeks. I'll be heading to Dallas-Fort Worth area on Thursday for a video shoot. A lot of people thought I was going to do a clinic. I will not be doing a clinic this time. I'm sorry. I have had places, people ask about doing clinics in Dallas, so that may be coming up this fall. We will see. Chrissy says, God bless Texas and being able to ride year-round. Yes, that's appealing. Susan says, my trotty guide doesn't gait on grass, better on worn gravel trail on the flat. Which is exactly what I said, because the grass and deeper footing is definitely harder. They pick their feet up more, which does encourage the trot and makes it harder for them to gait, which is what I talked about earlier at the beginning of the video, Susan. So yes, you're exactly right. That is very true. But again, they can learn to gait in the grass, but they just have to have it built really, really well and have those gaiting muscles really solid for the horses to be able to hold it where it is harder for them. And again, like I talked about, a lot of pacey horses do better on rough surface. It's not always true. Sometimes they do better on hard surfaces, and you don't know unless you try. And that's why every horse is different, and I highly recommend you try. And if you're just joining us, please go watch the beginning of the video where I talk about this a little bit. Yvonne says, do I recommend a certain bit? Well, I do. I'll try to put it in the link in the description. There are 2 bits that I recommend. One is the Rockin' S raised snaffle. I take it with me to clinics, and many, many horses just love it. The other bit is a shanked bit, the McGregor releasing bit, and I have the version that has short shanks, and I'm the only person that sells it. I do have a hard time keeping them in stock, so you have to order it, and there is a bit of a waiting period until I get them in. I always keep ordering more, but it's hard, they cost a lot to keep them in stock because they're not a cheap item. Those are the 2 bits I recommend, and I have videos on both of those if you go back and look. Chrissy said, now that Callie is more set in her gait, she is skating through sand and grass. It's just more challenging for her. Exactly what Chrissy said. That's exactly true. And it's the idea that now she's more set in her gait, she can do it, but it's still hard. Again, Callie is just going to get stronger and stronger, and those things will become easier and easier for her as she gets stronger. And again, Chrissy has the advantage of living in Texas, where she can ride all year round. And unlike people that live in like Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, or any of the northern states that take quite a bit of time off if they don't go south, she'll be able to keep building those muscles year round rather than having a break in the winter. Hi, Shanna. So there we go. Hopefully that answers those questions. So yeah, it's a matter of really not just building the memory, which is the stop and praise, so they mentally know what we're asking for, but also building up those muscles, which of course can be lost at any point if they have a long period of time off. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I was kind of excited to talk about this topic, and I got an email from a guy who had been doing some training in the past year. He decided to go on the road and had a huge success, and so he asked me to do a video on this, and I was kind of like, initially it was weird, because initially I was kind of slightly offended, and I shouldn't have been. There's no reason for me to be offended, but I have talked about this in different videos about the footing, and I talk about it in all my clinics, and I was kind of like, well, why haven't people heard it? And then I remember, right, I've made so many videos and people join me at all different stages that not everybody's heard it. So I thought it was time to do a video talking specifically about it, and hopefully more people will watch it. Even though we have hardly anybody watching today, maybe they'll be able to come back and watch it later and then share this video. So again, the best thing you can do to help me is to just share this video as much as you can so other riders will see this and it will help them with their horses as well. So thanks guys so much for watching. You guys have a good week. Have a good ride. You got this.